I wonder how often those intelligence agencies in the 20th century, and of course, the natural question extending it to the 21st century, how often they go to the assassination, how often they go to the kill part of that versus just the espionage.
Let's take an example from American intelligence, from the CIA, 1950s, 1960s into the 1970s, MKUltra. That is a secret program which was involved with what is generally categorized as mind control, which really means messing with people's heads. And what was the goal of that? Well, there seemed to have been lots of goals, but there was an FBI memo that I recently acquired, quite legally, by the way. It's declassified, but it's from 1949. So this is only 2 years after the CIA came into existence. And it's an FBI memo because the FBI, of course, very curious what the CIA is up to. And the FBI are not part of this meeting, but they have someone they're sort of spying on what's going on. So there was a meeting which was held in a private apartment in New York. So it's not held in any kind of, it's essentially never really happened because it's in somebody's house. And there are a couple of guys there from the CIA. One of them is Cleve Baxter. Cleve Baxter is the great godfather of the lie detector. Pretty much everything that we know or think we know about lie detectors today, you owe to Cleve Baxter. He's also the same guy that thought that plants could feel, but which somehow was a derivative of his work on lie detectors. So these guys are there, and they're giving a talk to some military and other personnel, and there's certain parts of the document which are, of course, redacted, but you could figure out what it is that they're talking about. And they're talking about hypnotic suggestion and all the wonderful things that you can potentially do with hypnotic suggestion. And two of the things they note is that one of the things we could potentially do is erase memories from people's minds and implant false memories. That would be really keen to do that. Just imagine how that would be done. So here to me is the interesting point. They're talking about this in 1949. MKUltra does not come along until really 1953, although there are all sorts of, artichoke and others. Everything is sort of leading up to that. It's simply an elaboration of programs that were already there. I don't think that it ultimately matters whether you can implant memories or erase memories. To me, the important part is they thought they could, and they were going to try to do it. And that eventually is what you find out in the efforts made during the 1950s and 60s through MKUltra, MK Search, MK Naomi, and all the others that came out. That's one of the things they're working for. And among the few MKUltra era documents that survive, there's that whole question is that you get someone to put a gun to someone's head and pull the trigger and then not remember it later. Yeah. You could, interestingly enough.
So non-direct violence, controlling people's minds at scale, and experimenting with different kinds of ways of doing that.
One person put it that the basic argument there, or the basic thing you're after, was to understand the architecture of the human mind, how it worked, how it put together, and then how you could take those pieces apart and assemble them in different ways. So this is where hypnosis comes in, which is was then still is, fairly spooky thing. Nobody's ever explained to me exactly what it is. The idea was that you think of the whole possibilities in this case, could you create an alternate personality and use that alternate personality in an agent role, but then be able to turn it on and off? So subsequently, the person, which that personality inhabited, was captured and interrogated, tortured, had their fingernails torn out. They would have no memory of it. They couldn't give any kind of secret away because it was embedded in some part of their brain where there was a completely different person. I mean, you can just imagine the possibilities that you can dream up. And again, it's not, I think, the question as to whether that is possible or whether it was done. Although I suspect that both of those are true, but that you would try to do it. Then imagine the mischief that comes out of that. And one of the big complaints from a legal standpoint about MKUltra and the rest is that you were having medical experiments, essentially, being carried out on people without their knowledge and against their will, which is, a no-no.
Yeah, the fact that you're willing to do medical experiments says something about what you're willing to do. And I'm sure that same spirit, innovative spirit, persists to this day. And maybe less so, I hope less so in the United States, but probably in other intelligence agencies in the world.
Well, one thing that was learned, and the reason why most MKUltra and similar records were destroyed on order in the early 70s, around the time the CIA became under a certain amount of scrutiny. The mid-70s were not a good time for the agency because you had the church committee breathing down their neck. You had all of these assassins. People were asking lots of questions. And so you need to dump this stuff because there's all kinds of, because you were committing crimes against American citizens. So let's eradicate it. And the important lesson to be learned is that never do this type of thing again, where at least in any way in which the agency's direct fingerprints are placed on it. You can pay people. You can subsidize research. You can set up venture capital firms. You got plenty of money. And you can funnel that money into the hands of people who will carry out this research privately. So if something goes wrong, you have perfect deniability.